Hello, everyone. I send my greetings to Bonn. Unfortunately, I cannot be there this year, and that's why I'm sending this brief video intervention. My name is Christina Voigt. I am a professor of law at the University of Oslo in Norway. I am currently the chair of the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law, and I'm also the co-chair of the Paris Agreement Implementation and Compliance Committee, together with my colleague Hasib Gohar from Pakistan. And it's in that last function I'm making my brief presentation here today. What I would like to do is to give a little bit of feedback on what has happened since Glasgow, since COP27, with the Paris Agreement Implementation and Compliance Committee, which we now call PIKE, and what we are currently working on. Now, when it comes to COP27, or rather CMA3 in Glasgow, a lot of things happened there, but outside the limelight, actually quite a number of significant things happened also with regard to the further development of the Paris Agreement Implementation and Compliance Committee. Now, as you all know, perhaps the Paris Agreement in Article 15 establishes a mechanism to promote implementation, to facilitate implementation and to promote compliance. And this mechanism consists of a committee, and a committee is therefore established in the Paris Agreement itself. Its mandate is to facilitate implementation and promote compliance with regard to parties' individual performance, but it also has the mandate to address systemic issues, either based on a request by the CMA or on its own initiative. Now, the CMA3 in Glasgow delivered on a number of things with regard to the to PIKE. First of all, the CMA adopted the first set, or the first batch of the rules of procedure for the for PIKE. They are included in Decision 24 CMA3. And these are the rules of procedure that the committee had prepared throughout its first 2 years of operation. As you perhaps know, the first members were elected in Madrid in 2019, and then from 2020 to 2022 or 2021, we worked online only and prepared the rules of procedure. And the first set was adopted by CMA3 in Glasgow. Now, the first set deals with very formal issues like the meeting place, the function of the co-chairs, the oath that the members have to present, but it also includes some rather innovative elements. For example, it contains rules for parental leave. It contains rules for electronic decision-making, and it also contains rules now, finally, for observer participation, which is the default. Meetings of the committee are open to observers unless they're closed, and they can be closed if issues that raise confidentiality concerns are being addressed. But the default now is that the meetings are open. Now, the CMA also encouraged the committee to start working on its substantive work by taking into account the information that is being provided to the committee at every meeting by the Secretariat on the performance of parties with regard to their core legal obligations. And the third important element that was decided in Glasgow was that the mandate of the committee to finalize its rules of procedure was extended for another year until CMA4. And that's why currently this year, and that's partly the reason I'm not in Bonn, currently this year, the committee is working feverishly on finalizing its second set of the remaining rules of procedure in order to send a draft to the CMA for adoption now this year in Sharm el-Sheikh. And the last thing that I wanted to mention that happened in Glasgow, so a lot of things actually did happen in Glasgow, was that finally the committee is complete. That means that all member seats and seats for alternates are covered, are taken. The remaining members and outstanding seats were elected by CMA3. For the first 2 years, the committee had worked in a way that where not all seats were taken. So now finally we are a full committee, and that has also changed a little bit the dynamics, which is very, very active and constructive since the election by CMA3. Now, what has happened since then? We're now in June, so it's half a year later. The committee had several formal and informal meetings since. They all happen in Bonn, or the informal meetings are happening in an virtual manner. We also, at the first formal meeting this year, which was, I think, in March, the two co-chairs were re-elected. So Hasib and I, we were re-elected as co-chairs, and we will serve until the end of our terms, which is the 31st of December 2024. So we were re-elected for 3 more years. Now, what we're doing currently in all these meetings by the committee is that we're working on that second set of rules of procedure. And these rules of procedure go much more into the, how can I say, the nitty-gritty legal bits and pieces of how actually everything connects together under the Paris Agreement. We're looking at the initiation modalities and timelines for the committee in cases where, for example, a party comes to the committee with a submission on its own behalf with regard to its own challenges of implementation or compliance, but also, of course, the initiation modalities and timelines where the committee will address issues where a party has not complied with its core legal obligation. For example, it has not submitted or maintained an NDC, or it has not submitted the mandatory information required under Article 13, has not participated in the facilitative multilateral consideration of progress, the FMCP, although this is still sometime in the future, but at this moment, we already have to consider how to deal with it because it has to go into the rules of procedure. And finally, also how to deal with the situation where a developed country party has not submitted its mandatory information under Article 9, paragraph 5. We're also looking at how to address issues of systemic significant and persistent inconsistencies as they may be addressed in the reports by the technical expert review teams. It is up to the committee to make that determination, but we are dealing with how to do it and how to engage with the party concerned, because in this situation, any further step by the committee would require the consent of the party concerned. The committee is also working on how to identify and how to deal with systemic issues, which is a very interesting mandate of the committee. It's a little bit underexplored what kind of power or possibilities lie within that particular mandate of the committee. And of course, we're looking at what the committee can do once it takes up an issue. And as you perhaps know, in Decision 20 CMA1 from Katowice, there's a whole catalog of measures that the committee can address or can take, including assessing parties' engagement with the relevant bodies under the Paris Agreement or serving the Paris Agreement with regard to financial, technological, and capacity building support. And we are thinking through how the committee can actually do this and how it can reach out to those relevant arrangements and bodies. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of very interesting and challenging discussions because, as you perhaps can see, the Paris Agreement Compliance Committee is where everything comes together that else happens under the Paris Agreement, and it's very important to follow the negotiations and follow the developments in with regard, for example, to the transparency framework or what we had now in common timeframes from Glasgow, and see how it fits in and how it can inform the work of the committee. We will have our next meeting in August, and an informal meeting prior to that. And we hopefully will finalize our draft rules of procedure and then send it to the translation body, and then hopefully to the CMA, which will hopefully adopt it at its fourth meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh in November. But as we can see, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and we hopefully will be able to finalize it in due course. I wish I were there to address any questions you may have, but unfortunately I'm traveling and I can't be available in a Zoom setting, but I hope you got some questions answered. But I'm also available per email. If you want to mail me, then please don't hesitate. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much for your attention, and good luck with the event.